Yo guys, what's going on? It's Rose here, bringing you guys a brand new draft analysis. We are invited to the PDD, the Pokemon Draft Dynasty, hosted by my buddy KJ for its third season. I am very excited to bring this to you guys. And yeah, let's go ahead, let's get right into it. I'll give you guys a quick overview of how the league works and how drafting worked and everything like that before we get into our team. And we're going to go ahead and get into that right now. Now, we had 16 coaches where we had to draft anywhere from 10 to 11 Pokemon with a 110 point budget. Mons ranged anywhere from 1 to, I believe, 19 or 20 points. So kind of keep that in mind with where we were at. You had a 25 point Terra budget, which was a separate budget from the 110 points. And the Mons would just cost whatever they were on the tier list. So, like, for example, if a Mon was 8 points on the tier list, it would, at base, cost 8 points of your Terra budget. You also drafted, you drafted 1 to 2, 3 Terra Captains with 3 types for each Terra Captain, and Terra types costed points, which came from that 25 point budget. So, let's say you drafted a Mon that was at base level 8 points, but then you, say, grabbed Terra Fairy, Terra Water, and Terra Bug for whatever, example. Each of those separate types would cost an additional points out of that 25 point budget, unless one of those was your Mon's stab. So, like, if you had like a Ceruledge, for example, you could grab either Ghost or Fire for completely free. But if you wanted Ghost and Fire, one of those would become not free and would end up costing you points. It's a little bit complicated, but it's all right. It ended up working out for us. So let's go ahead and let's get straight into what we drafted this season. We were actually number 16 out of 16, so we literally had the last pick of the draft. And with my first pick, I selected Latios. Now, I don't know if I've used Latios ever. At least in Gen 9, I can almost guarantee... No, I did. I used it for... what was that league called? I can't remember right now. I did use it. Can't remember what it's called right now, but I did use it recently. It was actually a while ago. But Latios is very solid. At base 110 and at 17 points was actually like pretty solid value. And being there at the tail end of the first round, I thought was incredible value for it. This thing hits super hard with its new move with Luster Purge getting a buff in the DLC, now being 95 base power instead of being, I think it was base 70 before. And it's a coin flip to lower the special defense of the target by 1 stage. Phenomenal value. Getting, access to moves like Draco, getting Luster Purge, Aura Sphere. It gets Flip Turn, which is really cool. I can recover, I can set up with like Calm Mind or Dragon Dances. It's definitely a special attacker, but this thing hits super hard, and I am very excited to use Latios. I think it is a very solid draft mon. I know guys like John Jr. are using it right now. Will I be as creative as him? I don't know, but we're gonna do some funny shit because, of course. I mean, if you guys have been keeping up with my stuff for a while now, you guys know I like to do funny shit. So that's just, that's just how we roll. Next up, we are gonna grab, in my opinion, a pretty solid mon to pair with Latios. We are grabbing Iron Hands. I'm super excited to use Iron Hands. I think this thing is phenomenal. Honestly, even though it's a decently expensive mon at like 14 or 15 points, I think, it's a very good mon. This thing with Electric and Fighting as its dual stab, it hits super hard, hits much of the meta for super effective with its dual stab, plus its coverage gets access to things like Ice Punch, it gets Volt Switch obviously, it's going to access to things like Sword Stance, and a few other moves that I have, saved for later. But a very solid mon nonetheless. I think Iron Hands is it is one of the more underrated mons. It has been, a bit more popular in the last few months. With guys like OG Albina, who just won BBR Season 7 with it, alongside like Dio Speed and stuff, so super excited to use Iron Hands this season. It is very bulky, hits super hard, and is like a pinnacle Rosemon, just because it hits hard and it can take a couple hits pretty easily. So super excited to use it this season, can't wait. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my third mon here. We're grabbing Azumarill. Now, originally, I had Enamorous Incarnate on this team. I ended up dropping it in Grace in place of Azu. I think Azumarill fits this team really well so far. I think it pairs really well with Latios. It's a great, switch into Dragons. It's a great Draco check. and just being a fairy type in general. Huge Power is an amazing ability, getting access to moves like Liquidation and Ice Punch and Play Rough, Knock Off, Aqua Jet. I mean, this thing hits super, super, super hard and is very hard to deal with. Getting access to things like Belly Drum as well to make that even worse is insane. It can be a choice band in Mon. I've seen some crazy stuff from a good buddy of mine who's used it just recently. My buddy Colin, he just used it recently in his championship run in the PBAL. But yeah, this thing hits super, super, super hard, and you can do a lot of different things with it. So I'm super excited to use it this season. But next up, we're gonna grab another mod. We're kind of filling out our offense a little bit right now. Next up is Crocodile. I think Crocodile is very, very, very good. Getting access to Earthquake and Knockoff as its two main forms of stab. Getting access to Stealth Rocks is amazing. Being able to taunt things, getting a ton of different coverage between things like Scale Shot and Gunk Shot, and I mean, this thing does a ton. You can be Assault Vested, you can be Scarfed, you could be a bulk up variant, you could set up, you could be utility. There's so many different things you could do with this mon. It is very versatile. Has pretty well-rounded stats. The only like kind of lackluster speed or lackluster stat, excuse me, I would say was speed at 92, which isn't terrible. But in Gen 9, it's kind of hard to like really take advantage of a mon when it's only around base 90 speed. So, you know, it is what it is. But every other stat this thing has is really solid. So definitely excited to use this thing. I've used it a couple times over the last few years, and I really like Crook, and I'm excited to give it another go. And I think it's my first time in Gen 9 using it, so this will be fun. I think it's my first time in Gen 9 using it, so definitely excited to use it. I love Crocodile, one of my favorite mons from Gen 5, which is my favorite generation. So, you know, we got to give a little bit of, you know, Unova bias here. Next up, we're grabbing a mon that I have been shitting on for so long. I know it is a very good mon, but I've hated it, and I'm willing to give it a shot myself. We are grabbing Cresselia. I have despised this mon because it is fat, it takes all of the hits, and just seems to never die. And especially when it's, you know, a Terra Captain, which we're also doing, by the way. So I'm just kind of losing all right to speak on this from now on. But you know what? Here we are. We're gonna try it. Now, when you think of Cresselia, you really think of it as a Stalmon, but this thing can do a ton of different things. It gets a ton of coverage. With being able to set up and everything, that this thing can hit super hard if you get it, you know, if you position it properly. Like I said, we are making this a Terra Captain this season. We are Electric, Poison, and Fairy Terras this season. You were not required to pick a stab. I could have picked a Terra Psychic, but I think my value was a little bit better to not pick Psychic and just take a lower end Terra Captain later. But yeah, Terra Cresselia is insane. Like I said, super fat, and with its ability Levitate, making it an Electric type means it'll have no weaknesses, which isn't, you know, is not fun for my opponents. So, you know, good luck to them for that. Terra Poison is amazing. Just being able to be a Fairy Resist in this metagame is insane. It is super valuable, and being a Poison type that is not weak to ground is also really, really nice. And, you know, having a bulky Fairy is always really nice. I could always take a little bit of pressure off of Azu if I want. But yeah, Cresselia, I don't know how I feel about using it. I know it is very good, very good. However, you know what I mean? Like, it's a very good mon. I just feel like I'm kind of like dipping into the dark side a little bit, like some Darth Vader Jedi shit. But, you know, here we are. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out with Terra Cresselia this season. If it's good, you'll find out. Next up, a mon I don't think I've used. I've not used it in Gen 9 Wi-Fi, I know that, but I don't know if I've used it in a Showdown League at any point. We are grabbing Hisuian Gudra. Hisuian Gudra is a very solid mon. My buddy J Ricky just used it in the P4G low tier, and we're going to be using it here. Dragon Steel is an amazing defensive typing. Getting access to a ton of different moves between its dual stabs. I think it gets like knockoff and, you know, all kinds of crazy shenanigans. I know regular Gudra got access to a ton of moves this generation, so it's going to be very interesting to see what we're able to do this season with Hisuian Gudra. It is, like I said, very fat. It is a very easy mon to just slap an Assault Vest onto and not really have to worry about it too much. being able to do it can also do things like, you know, acid armor body press. It can click counter. It can earthquake. It's a phaser with things like dragon tail. It gets a little bit of water coverage with hydro pump. Gets knockoff. Gets some poison coverage just like regular Goodra with like sludge bomb and sludge wave. Only thing I would like, it'd be cool if it could like thunder wave or like set up stealth rocks. But that's not, you know, that's not its purpose, and it is just going to be here to be fat, bulky, annoying, and just, you know, be a pain in the ass. That is its purpose, and it is going to do that very, very well for us this season. Now, heading into round 7 here, I needed removal, and I needed it really fucking bad. Because originally there's a few different things I was going to take. I was going to take Tentacruel. I was thinking, before I took Goodra here, I was thinking Empoleon, but then that got taken, so it just kind of like threw that out the window. And I know that doesn't get removal, but, you know, you get my point. There was a lot of different things I was trying to get, all of which got sniped. I landed on Talonflame. Talonflame is basically fast defog. That is what it is. 126 speed, you know, defog, U-turn, roost. I can be a little bit of an offensive threat with like Swords Dancing, you know, sets, or I can run Banded or Specs. Gale Wings is really not what it used to be. So Flame Body is pretty easy to just, you know, to use pretty much week in, week out. But Talonflame, it's solid. It is a utility mon. It clicks defog, clicks U-turn. That's pretty much all it needs to do, and that's its entire purpose on the team. Also, it's a good, you know, fairy check. A little bit because it's a fairy resist, not super bulky, but has a little bit of bulk. So honestly, super excited to use Talonflame. I don't remember the last time I've used it, so it'll be interesting to see it then. Next up, we're grabbing a mon that I, as of recording this, I may or may not be using like right now. Is Terra Appleton. Now, this Terra Appleton may not be as good as the other Terra Appleton, because we in SDA. We have Dragon Fairy Steel. Here, we have Grass Poison Ground, which is going to be interesting. I think, honestly, Terra Appleton is one of the better low-end Terra Captains when you're talking a 3 or 4 point mon that can sit in front of basically whatever the fuck it wants most of the time. It's honestly very hard to break through and very hard to deal with. And I'm honestly very excited to use Appleton this season. I love Appleton. That's why I grabbed it in SDA in my little takeover. And I'm grabbing it here. After looking over this with my front office, this is just kind of what we landed on as one of the better options later on in the draft. But yeah, super, you know, solid mon. It's another dragon type, but neither of my other dragon type, you know, being Hisui and Goodra, is not weak to fairy. We are definitely fairy weak with my steel type at this point not being a resist. My resist is a Talonflame. That's not great, but honestly, it's all right. We're gonna pick up a resist later on in the draft. It's not gonna be this round, however. We're picking up Overquill. Now, originally I had picked up regular Quillfish. At that point, I had been sniped so many times. We were kind of towards the end of the draft. I had been sniped so many times at this point, and I had been sniped on all my low-end budget mons anyway. So I started grabbing shit. I didn't think I was gonna keep. So I grabbed Quillfish, and kind of knew I wasn't gonna keep it. I was gonna move for something else, and I basically just grabbed its dad, or like its stepdad, or whatever the fuck, because it's Hisuian. So, this, you know, Overquill, I love Overquill. I just used it in IBL. There it was on a rain team. This is not a rain team in any capacity, but I'm interested to see how I use it here. It's a very solid mon. Being Poison Dark, only being weak to ground, is very good for me. I have a couple of immunities to that, being, you know, Cresselia, Talonflame, and Latios. So my ground typing, you know, being a weakness to this is not a big deal. Getting access to spikes and T-spikes to do things like Barb Barrage and Crunch, it would be nice if this thing got knockoff. I'm kind of glad it doesn't get knockoff, because then dealing with it would be much worse. But in our scenario right now, I would love for it to have knockoff, but it's totally fine. But yeah, honestly, super excited to use Overquill again. I really did enjoy it towards the tail end of IBL when I was kind of using it as a rain sweeper. But honestly, like I said, super excited to use it. And yeah, I'm excited to see what it does for me this season. Next up, we are grabbing Tinkatuff. Yeah, you are not Tinkaton. No, no, no. Tinka Tough. Alright? Honestly, for 3 points, it's a steel type that I needed. It's a fairy resist that I needed. It gives me Stealth Rocks. It gives me Knockoff. It gives me Thunder Wave. It gives me a decent bulky steel at like very, very cheap. So honestly, I don't hate it. Tinkaton has always been solid. Tinkatuff I feel like is better. Mainly for the fact that it is bulkier because of Eviolite. So honestly, very interested to see what Tinkatuff does for me here. Is it going to be an attacker? Fuck no. There is no reason for me to basically click anything other than Stealth Rocks, Knockoff, Thunder Wave with this Mon. Maybe I click a random fourth move that's utility, but this is not going to be like the Sword Stance Tinkaton that I brought in BBR. This is not going to happen. So, cue back to later in the season when I end up bringing fucking Sword Stance Tinkatuff and I eat my fucking words. But here we are. But yeah, Tinkatuff, excuse me, for being this low on the, on the points tier list, it fills the roles that I need it to fill, which mainly is a fairy resist that clicks Stealth Rocks. So pretty solid. That's going to be its entire purpose this season. So we'll see what happens. See if I end up bringing it. I feel like I'm going to bring it more than I think. Than you would think at first. But we'll see when we get there. And last but certainly not least, Wartortle. I love this Mon. Wartortle is always fun. And originally I had grabbed this because again, it was the end of the draft. I was like, fuck it. I really, actually originally I had grabbed Persian. But then I dropped it, picked this up when I made my changes. And quite frankly, I don't know how often I'm going to bring this. It kind of falls into the same role that Tinkatuff falls into, where it basically fills like 1 or 2 roles, and that's really all I needed to do, where it is a slow pivot that clicks Rapid Spin, and that's really all I needed to do. It doesn't do too much, but that is exactly what I needed to do. It is click Flip Turn, click Rapid Spin, maybe click Taunt or something. I don't know its move pool off the top of my head. Don't even know if it gets Taunt, but we will figure that out later. But yeah, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think of the team down below. Honestly, I think the team is pretty solid. It is very fat, which is not something I normally do. I don't love to draft super, super, super fat teams, and I've kind of done that. I have Terra, Cresselia, Hisui, and Goodra. I'm very ashamed of myself. Very ashamed of myself. But hopefully this is the team that we can take to a championship. We'll see. We will see. But yeah, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of your hair, and I will see you guys in the next video.